can speak really loud. Oops, I thought I didn't know it was mic'd all of a sudden. By the way, this shirt is not a fashion statement. This is to keep the pastels off my clothes. And it's nice to know that my brother and I are the best of both worlds, a Calvinistic father and a Lutheran mother. So I did go, by the way, to a Concordia College, which is Lutheran. And my brother went to a secular school called West Michigan University. You may have heard of it. I do have to say that I'm at a disadvantage in some way to these guys. Because the worst thing that an artist has, and I've already expressed it to some people, is to look at a blank piece of paper or a blank canvas and getting started. It's been really good for me. I have a number of students, not only high schoolers, but also some people who are older than I am, believe it or not. But I also have, my youngest student is my 9-year-old granddaughter. And it's been just a delight to work with her. She's very focused, very easy for her to paint for an hour and a half, and to have her just have flowers come out and butterflies and all kinds of neat things, like purple trees and that kind of thing. And we strive when we think we know everything to be again like what they do and how they are. And so this is actually a new thing for us too. None of us have ever done this before. I think Rod is going to get spoiled. Next time he's going to have a reading, he's going to expect a soundtrack, which isn't going to be there. So with further ado, bro, take it away. And we'll probably take a break somewhere. And Jeanette, in fact, I'll get you later before we go. It's so far been a great experience already that we get to do this, and that some people had the foresight and the vision to bring it all together. And I think just snowballed. So we're just going to take a break later, and you'll let us know, right? Go ahead.
Well, thank you for coming this afternoon. It's a real honor to read my poems to you. My name is Rod Torsen. I'm from Grand Rapids. Grew up in Iowa, and in this poem book, this chapbook, I was very honored to have Johan come up with the cover for me. So later on, hopefully, you'll be able to take a look at this. My first poem is called "As If a House Is Not Enough to Clean, Mother Swept the Mulberry Tree for Dean." Now, my mom was kind of a tough character. She still is, and I hope she doesn't hear this, but she's in Minnesota, so I think I'm pretty safe. But a lot of times she'd come and grab at us first, and then after she shook us a few times, then she'd find out what happened. But so I'm going to start the poem. As if a house is not enough to clean, Mother swept the mulberry tree for Dean, poking that broom as if mulberries meant madness, trying to sweep Dean from the tree. Dean, who would not come when called, the purple castles staining his hand, he laughing that Mother could not catch him in her breathy push of broom. The mulberry poorly sown, a small throne on which to perch a life. Mulberry, with its purple so fragile, it breaks up into the parts of an ant. Mulberry, low on the totem pole of berries. Dean, low on the totem pole of sons. This poem is entitled, "The Lutheran Church in Gredinger, Iowa is Burning to the Ground." And it has something kind of nice that happens at the end of the poem. In addition to that, it brought the Catholics and Lutherans together because the Catholics offered the church, their church to the Lutherans so that they could have a service for the 2 or 3 years while that new church was being planned and built. The Lutheran Church in Gredinger, Iowa is burning to the ground. Soon a mailman, 3 joggers, a gray-haired lady and her poodle watch as smoke scuffs the view. So the firemen seem to lean ladders against the very flames they try to put out. A pickup driving by screeches to a halt, backs up, 3 men jump out, squint through the fumes at the swaggering hoses, each handled by a fireman hurrying it along. Then suddenly the cross begins to bend, as if Uri Geller, at Paranormalist on TV, makes it swoon. Soon the cross hangs upside down. But just when the onlookers settle into their size, a Girl Scout with a brownie camera, she almost drops, sees it, the cross boiling, recoiling, and right before the steeple topples, as the crowd cheers, twists ever slowly, impossibly back up. In the mid-1980s, my uncle, Vern Gard, who would soon retire from many years as a principal in a Lutheran school, began a hobby of taking photos of barns, dilapidated barns. And my dad and I would be with him sometimes on the weekend when he, and show him different areas of the country near Gredinger where there were indeed these dilapidated barns. And this poem came out of that. And I guess Vern was getting a little dilapidated at the same time. He only lived 5 or 6 years, and he seemed like he was in good health and everything, but then he had an aneurysm, and he ended up dying of pneumonia. But he was quite a character, and I keep thinking about him. I can't believe he's been gone for over 20 years now, 24 years. Old barn. May wind collapse you, but no jag of sky left from storms be lodged into your roof, twisting it so you wear your roof cockeyed like some summer hat, humoring folks driving by, sun streaming down to make light of barn and rafter. Sun should hit the broadside of a barn, but within it, light should be shed by straw alone, preserving your dark's nurturing balm, soothing to the fluctuations of milking and making birth, earning the darkness of an old museum. For boards of your pens, shiny as if petrified from cattle rubbing for or against them, each for your glory, barn, as our light bulbs lunging the length of their wattage for dark they cannot touch. Your exterior, bleached in sun, is driftwood down some river of time. But barn, at your core, when you're dead to all but dilapidation, swear off that river of your dark. Work it like never before. Bring back the old farm boy, dead too, but for his gathering of days, into your middle. Barn, provide a way out for him, but first stir him to life with fear and trembling. Then marshaling your lean, your wild creeks, your ghostly flashes of cattle and sheep, bring on that ferocious, inevitable groan. This poem is entitled Two Sisters. And I will confess here that I took something from my own poem in dealing with someone in my family that I had some bad relations with. And I thought about Louina and Clarissa. Louina and Clarissa Jensen. Louina was, she seemed older than the hills when she was my babysitter. And then she ended up living another 50 years, I think. No, not 50 years. 30 or 40 years after that. And she lived on one side of our farm. And Clarissa lived on the other side of our farm. And they didn't speak to each other for the last 20 or 30 years of their lives due to inheritance problems. And yet, if you would go up to talk to either one, they were the nicest people in the world to everybody else but each other. Two sisters, a mile from each other, the cold shoulders of farms, their parents' inheritance squabbled down to a setting sun. After that, not a word but disdain balanced with goodwill for others. After church, one widow hailing down a car to gush over children, the other inside striking up a few words for the shy man at the hat rack. On separate farms, at night, under table light, binding quickly as if maybe to outdo the unwinding for missions, knitting sweaters, crocheting quilts, building the Braille mountains. Then failing to climb them with their own fingers, they'd laugh separately and count it as gain. But on town night, when they'd meet on Main, one averted her sister's eyes to window shop shadows, the other awkwardly called to someone across the street where nobody was, just some lonely feeling, ghosting parallel steps. For years, my family, Paulette here in the front row is my wife, and we have 3 children, and we would go back 2 or 3 times a year to Northwest Iowa to see the grandparents, and then go up to Minnesota and see my wife's parents. And one year we stopped on the highway. It's one of those country highways, didn't have too much traffic. There were some deer out stretched out on the sidewalk and in the ditches, and we just stood and looked at them for a few minutes, and we got relatively close. How deer reveal what you are. 2 deer carve everything they show themselves against. Tree, fence, slope of sky. You, the intruder to a place you lived half your life. Until now, you never saw cornrows for what they are. The deer turn their bodies so head and hind peer at you. Each brown stalk working up to the power of a torch to find you somewhere past wordlessness. This poem is called "The Water Tower Cannot Casually Wear the Sky." There are so many times when I drive through small towns and I see the water tower at the edge of town in the middle of a pasture, and cattle up around it. And cattle normally seem quite large, but it almost looks comical seeing them beside the water tower. Not that this is really a humorous poem. The water tower cannot casually wear the sky until it shows its knowledge. How a cow scratching against the tower leg would have its lurchings worked out in water. Or how a storm fisting against the great belly would be fingers slipping by on both sides. The tower not bending until it whispered to the boy who had hauled himself up its ladder that it could leaf him through the blue, pitch him back and forth until he swayed into his father's arms. Simple as the act of letting go. Oh.
First of all, if you think I was ignoring you, you're right. It's the only way I work. Excuse me. We as art, people always say I'm a people person because I talk too much. But I can be by myself for hours when I do this, and that's why I mentioned my little granddaughter. I figured the only way I could do this thing was to think about emulating my little Amelia, because that's what she does when she works with me. In fact, one time we were together in our laundry room where we work, and I kept hearing this voice going, I'm looking at the painting I'm working on. I'm kind of looking and I'm staying. I said, what? She said, why aren't you going to work? So that's a 9-year-old, you know. What I'm using right here, the reason that Jeanette brought that up, the pastels I'm using were bought by my mom for my dad before they were married. They were married on March 22nd, 1944, in the Netherlands, where we grew up. And they were still engaged at the time, so this was during the occupation. And my mother saved up her hard-earned money to give this to my dad. I think she paid the equivalent of $5 for that box. They're Rembrandt pastels made by a company called Royal Talens, which is a big manufacturer of art supplies in the Netherlands. I'm still using them. And I have a feeling that maybe sooner or later Amelia will use them too, and I'm hoping that it'll get passed down. So we're talking pastels that are like 70 years old, and they're working. There are a couple of them in there that are hard as a brick, but I don't have the heart to toss them out because they belong at a set, you know what I mean? They would just not look complete. We both teach, and that's kudos to my brother, at West Michigan Lutheran High School in Grand Rapids. It's a very tiny little high school. In fact, when I have 12 students, I'm really proud of the fact that I have a group this year that's very productive. They come in and they start working. I have to remind them the bell's going to ring. In fact, one of my colleagues is here too, Mr. Steve Thompson. He's sitting over there. He's a religion teacher, among other things, and a great motivator. And we both take after him now with students, and it's kudos to Steve. But the cool thing is when my class is in session, we represent 4 continents, the Americas, Africa, Asia, and Europe, and 6 countries. I have a student, my exchange students are all girls. I have a Slovakian, Japanese, a Vietnamese, and a girl from Uganda, and then yours truly from the Netherlands. So 4 continents and 6 countries. And I keep thinking that's what heaven's going to be like. You talk about diversity, it's really cool. And they're very productive. We have a lot of fun there. What happened is about 3 years ago, my brother was asked to come back and out of retirement and teach music, and you guys didn't have a share time. The program fell through. And my brother said, well, I know somebody that would be willing to teach art. And when I met with the principal, after we talked a while, pretty much the deal was, it works for us if it works for you. So that's how I got hired. And I'm having a blast. At my age, to be doing that, I get to hang out with teenagers, and with Steve, and with my brother, and now get to do this. It's been truly a blessing. But I really do want to give kudos to Jeanette, because it all started with her and her husband Ray going to an art show, looking at the artwork separately and coming together and deciding they like my piece the best. And I was just going to have an art show here. This wasn't going to happen. Things just snowballed. And you surrounded yourself with some very good people and brought it all together. So it's been kind of nerve-wracking because well, on the other hand, I feel vindicated, because if this bombs, there's a lot of stuff out here that pretty much tells me what I can really do. So, and artists just don't finish stuff right on the spot, so, but that is pretty much it.
It's my concluding poem, and it's about my years teaching in a Lutheran parochial school. And it was written about a month ago. It also deals, I was thinking about Easter at the time as well, and looking back over the years. Bringing the dark into the Christian school. Bringing the dark into the Christian school through the gym's double doors. 2 boys, squeamish and laughing. A girl, too, who from the potluck pulled me by my arm out to the playground. All 3 insisting I see something. The 2 boys tortured by not knowing the animal, but not so much that one couldn't boast, as if it were personal, of a foamy mouth and long snout. I knew what beast, and the girl winked, knowing full well herself. And still she trembled, her hand around my wrist, sending waves up my arms in the build-up to Easter, shaking a great stone to be rolled away, as if something in us were also locked in the cave. Soon we gazed down at a dead opossum, a wedge of darkness propping its jaws open, lips drawn back, teeth craggy pillars like those Samson pulled down, eyes half closed and empty of every voyage unveiled in them. A putrid scent insisted we move along. Then the girl told the boys it might return to life if we left it alone. "No, you're teasing us," they laughed as we walked back to the potluck. The next morning, the children and spectacle flew them back behind the school to discover the carcass gone. The boys running in proclaimed it alive again. The girl followed, then stood silent. In her eyes, seeds of light. On her lips, a subdued smile. And then, without sparing a word, asked to put up the Easter bulletin board. Thank you so much to
Johan and Obi and Rodney for contributing to this first time ever experience for all of us, I think. And thank you all for coming. Please make sure you stay and look at the works of Johan that are hung throughout the church, especially in the narthex, but also up here as well. And enjoy this experience of fellowship together. And come back next week when Joel Mabus will be here to do some funny song singing and some Michigan history and entertain us with some of his stories. Thanks for coming, and God bless you all.